The Behind Ears podcast crew would like to thank the following sponsors for their generous support. If you have a little one and you're going to Walt Disney World, you're going to need a stroller. I'll tell you what, kingdomstrollers.com is the place where you want to look into. I'll tell you, I've destroyed my fair share of strollers while at Walt Disney World, and those things are not cheap. But getting something from kingdomstrollers.com, they'll be able to help you pick out the perfect stroller for you. And the nice part is that because they're a Disney preferred provider, they'll be able to drop it off and pick it up right from your Disney resort at no extra charge. So if you don't want to necessarily destroy your stroller in the process and you want to have a great Disney vacation with your little one, contact kingdomstrollers.com and they'll set you right up. That's kingdomstrollers.com.
Howdy, partners. Did you hear that the folks over at Expedition Roasters have hit gold? Gold Rush churro flavor, that is, in Prospector's Roast. It's Expedition Roasters' latest specialty coffee release. This creation arose when the Prospector's churros were left on the mountain blasting site. Next thing you know, there's a big thunder blast, and it's raining churro dust into the campfire coffee. Eureka! A churro snack and a coffee roast. Now brew up a cup and hold on, because this here's the wildest coffee in the wilderness. And don't forget to check out their huge selection of pop culture-themed coffees, teas, and gear. Behind the Ears podcast listeners, be sure to use code EARS20 for 20% off your first order with us. That's EARS20 at expeditionroasters.com. Brew your happy place.
To you live from our studios on the East Coast and in the Midwest. It's the Behind the Ears podcast, because everybody does Disney differently. And welcome back to another episode of the Behind the Ears podcast. And I am your host tonight, Mr. Chris. And every once in a while, you hit the wrong button. And then you realize I didn't hit this other button. Then you realize I didn't hit this other button. But that's okay, because I finally hit the right buttons so I can chat with you. How are y'all doing tonight, everybody? Uncle Danny is out on special assignment this evening, and he will be back next week. But let me tell you a little something. You think it's just going to be me. No, it's not. Tell you what, we got a special guest live via satellite, coming to us after his long journey to the planet of Batu. That's right. We've got our very own Chris Hiller on the phone. Chris, how you doing tonight?
I am exhausted, but the adrenaline is still there.
I bet. I mean, it is one of those cases where, for those of you who don't know, it's one of those cases where, Chris, I don't know. Did you get any sleep last night before you headed out to Hollywood Studios?
About an hour and a half.
Really? That's not sleep. That's a nap.
Exactly.
I mean, it's just not. It's just no. Well, I'll tell you what. For everybody, Chris actually, I'll tell you, I want to say endured the trip for opening day over to Galaxy's Edge. And when I say endured, I mean, from what I understand, and Chris, you can keep me honest, I'll let you tell some of your story here in just a second, but man, it looked like you were very hot. It was extraordinarily crowded at first. And just, there was not a lot of, it seemed like it was pretty well controlled, but I'm sure people thought probably it could have been controlled even better. Why don't you tell us a little bit of how your morning started this morning? That's nice and redundant there. Why don't you tell us how it began and kind of what your plan of attack was?
So my morning started, as a lot of people saw from the live feed starting. I tried to get into Hollywood Studios parking lot around, I would say, 12:45 or 1 a.m. And as soon as we got off the exit ramp or on ramp, whatever you want to call it, to the main entrance parking booth, they had Orange County and FHP squad cars there directing people to back out of the parking lot. So At that point, I already been in contact with a couple people down here, and one of them told me that there was a line starting at the bridge at the boardwalk. So I went over there, parked there, and got in line. There was probably about 100 to 125 people in front of me. At that point, with the hurricane and everything coming, there's been a lot of tropical style weather in the area. So
Sure.
It's been very, very humid. And like I said, there was probably about 100 people there, 125 people there when I got there. And then obviously they just kept on, the word just kept on traveling, and people just kept showing up.
Sure.
So we were all compacted in there, and it was so hot to the point that, I mean, I was sweating more at that point than I probably was the 4 hours the night before trying to be in there for the soft opening. But that was, like I said, I got in line officially at 1:34 a.m. and there wasn't really much information, once again, with going, with what times and everything was going to start, the lines were going to start moving and everything. But we did find out that buses were going to start moving at 3:15. And at 3:15, we were still sitting back under the bridge by the boardwalk. And a lot of people were starting to get impatient. It's like, we've been in line longer than anybody else, and now these buses are going to come in and we're going to lose it. Well, we looked up and we saw a lot of buses coming in and a lot of people getting off, and I was able to zoom in, and I realized they all had uniforms on. So
okay.
It was them busing extra cast members in to help.
Yes. Because I know that we had I was in contact with some cast members, and several of that were actually they're actually part of the cast of Galaxy's Edge, and one of them had to be back. It was like 2:00 in the morning, and she, worked a full day with the media preview the day before, yesterday, I should say. And she's like, "Yep, got to be back here at, extraordinarily early." So that might have been some of the things that you were seeing too.
Yeah, and then they started letting us move up. There was, I want to say there was 3 or 4 different cast members in our area, 2 transportation people, and then 2, they weren't security, but you could tell they were not regular, like, in-park cast members.
Right.
Attraction cast members or whatnot. So they started giving little announcements here and there, and they kept moving us forward, maybe about 50 foot at a time, because they were trying to keep the line from forming back so far that it started affecting people in rooms at the boardwalk.
Oh,
so
okay. Yeah.
Every time we got a little move, it was a little bit of a tease. It's like, are we going? And we weren't going. Finally, we got going, and they said, we're gonna go up there. You're gonna get in line for the security. So we thought we were, when we got up by the bus stop area, that we thought they were going to stop us again and wait till the buses got in and then make it free for all for everybody at once.
Sure.
But they actually, I don't know if they let us go, or the demand for us going was just so strong that they let us go. But everybody started running. People were getting yelled. I mean, I'll be honest, I was fast walking, maybe slowly running. So everybody was kind of getting yelled at for running. Security was a breeze. They were honestly, they were doing one of the best jobs I've ever seen at security, and doing it at a fast pace. Then we all lined up at the touch points, and we stood there for, I want to say, about 20 minutes, and they finally let us in, but they only let us in. I call it Main Street. I know it's not really Main Street. I forget the actual name for it, but
right.
Right, I guess it's Hollywood Boulevard or whatnot.
Right.
They let us there, and they stopped us again. And at that point, I guess they were just trying to relieve pressure because it was backing up even past the security at that point. So then they looked up and they said, we're going to let you proceed a little bit further. So we're thinking, another 50-footer or whatnot. And they just let us go. And I'm telling you, that was probably the scariest moment I've ever had in a Disney park.
I mean, was it kind of like, I mean, I know they kind of directed you over towards, well, the left as you walk into the park, because that's where the entrance was for Galaxy's Edge. I mean, did everybody just kind of instinctively, move to the left type of scenario?
Well, see, a lot of us cut down the first exit, and then everybody saw that other people went up to the second left in front of the Chinese theater.
Yeah.
And obviously that's a wider area, so they were moving. So then everybody that took the first left, including me, were kind of like, oh, we took the wrong edge, the wrong way. We're going to be behind those people. So all of us started running. And I compared it to feeling like Simba with the stampede coming. That's how crazy it was.
Now, let me ask you this. It was crazy, but was it still a controlled crazy, or did you, did it ever feel like they were out of control? Was the crowd out of control? I mean, I've never been to anything like that at Disney because even for opening day for Toy Story Land, I had a fast pass. I kind of skipped the line. It was an easy in. The night before, you and I met for the soft opening. That was cake. So, I mean, what kind of feeling did you have with it?
On the way to just getting into Batu, in the beginning, on the way there when like I said, it was Stampede was happening. That was the most uncontrolled environment I've ever seen in a Disney park. The casters were trying their best to make everything happen, but if somebody would have tripped, they would have been hurt.
So it was more of just a large crowd, not that the cast members were not trying to maintain the situation.
Oh, they were trying their best, but it was just overpowering to them.
Yeah, and
there was no way anybody was going to control that.
Yeah, and the reason why I say that is I don't want anybody to get the idea that it was like neglectfully out of control. People have experienced crowds at Disney before, and we said this before. Hey, how many times have we said this on the show that the crowd for opening day was going to be of monumental proportion? And let's face it, it was absolutely right. But at the same time, we'll hear more in a minute, I'm sure, about, how did things actually, work out and work through. So as you kind of made it to your, try it again. As you made it to the left, what were some of the things that you experienced, just trying to get into that particular area of the park?
So it was like the 405 in California all the way to that point of the park. Literally like almost putting your arms on the shoulders of the person in front of you just to kind of create a lane.
Sure.
But then when we got there, we were held there for another 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Cast members were trying to speak, but everybody was if you heard my video, everybody was screaming and cheering. It was so hard to hear anything. And apparently somebody had mentioned that there was contact with a cast member in the front by somebody. I cannot confirm or deny that. I'm hoping it's not the truth because, they're doing their job.
Sure.
And to me, it seemed like at that point, it was very controlled after we got through the entrance to Batu.
Okay. And I kind of anticipated that. I mean, everybody's trying to finagle their way to as far front as possible while still trying to maintain a sense of comfort. I mean, you really are kind of wedged in there, tighter than lawn seats at an Aerosmith concert at the World Music Theater in Chicago. It's just you're packed, and I'm sure in some cases, like Randy says here, it was scary. Karen was thinking that would have been a nightmare. Alex also mentioned that Jimmy thought you were nuts. So
I got a lot of those comments, but you know what though? Honestly, if nobody's ever had a chance at an opening day at a park, a land, whatever, it is the most adrenaline-filled experience you could ever dream of having. It's worth everything you go through to get to that point.
I could actually imagine that. I mean, and I also have to believe that you have to be somewhat prepared for this sort of thing because obviously, well, I shouldn't say obviously. That's a bad term to use it. I'm going to make the assumption that the people that you saw there in the crowd behind, around you, behind you, in front of you, beside you, mainly is going to be, they're going to be adults and teenagers. Probably you didn't see a lot of little kids, I'm assuming.
There was not, yeah, there wasn't a lot of kids. It was mostly, I would say, maybe 17 up. There was a lot of adults, a lot of, I guess, the millennial class, I'd say,
Sure.
which is, to me, I think probably the biggest, the new Star Wars age group.
Sure. Okay.
But there was a lot of, there wasn't a lot of, like, 17 or unders, though. It was definitely teen, almost adult up.
Okay. I can see that. And that's kind of what I would predict, because I don't think any, family with little kids would dare to try to do that sort of thing. And if they did, they were probably very, very brave. And it was kind of funny because as the day went on, the funny part is that all the other parks were just downright empty. We'll get more to that in a minute. But so you're finally towards that last stretch before you walk through the gate of Batu. And you, if I'm not mistaken, it was around 5 o'clock or so where they finally let the first guests in. Is that, did I catch that correctly?
Yeah, it's between 4:45 and 5. Honestly, I was kind of going back and forth with streaming, so I kind of lost actual count of when it was, but I think it was between 4:45 and 5 for sure.
Okay. So, wow. So as you go through, I got to ask, what was the first, if you could describe the first 15 seconds of what your mind processed after you first saw Batu, what were some of the things going through your mind?
Well, I'm going to backtrack it a little bit if that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Basically because of it being an opening day thing. One of the coolest things about going on opening day is a lot of the times you got a lot of the higher management cast members that are around, but this one, it was all the residents of Batu lining the whole left side. And if you look at my video, you see they were high-fiving everybody. I got a couple of them myself. And, I mean, everybody's just cheering them on, thanking them for what they've done to make this possible. And it's just it's almost like a family feeling in a way, that we're all in this together, and everybody loves Disney, and they love Disney just as much as all of us. So you kind of feel that connection with them there. But once you get past that, you get inside Batu, and you literally feel like a needle in a haystack. It's that massive of a place.
Wow.
And I'm by no means am I a Star Wars fan at all. Like, I've seen a couple of movies, the newer ones. For me, seeing it for the first time, it was definitely emotional. Just seeing the work that they put in. It's you literally. I was talking to Ruby today, and I said, you literally don't even feel like you're in Hollywood Studios. Like, you literally feel like you're in another planet.
Right.
The Falcon ride is just so, like, the outside exterior portion of it is just so detailed. It looks fake, but you could tell the cast members or the Imagineers went above and beyond on every little detail they possibly could have.
You're not the first person to say that. It's kind of interesting that it was almost like it was too good.
Yes.
Okay. And it's kind of interesting because you're not the first person to use that terminology. And that was the other person that said it was, a very strong Star Wars fan. And by all means, they were not using that terminology as a negative connotation, but just as an example of the extraordinary detail that they were able to see just, as a guest. And that, I think, I knew it was going to be immersive. I knew there was going to be good detail, but I have not heard a single person say, yeah, the details were just meh. Everybody said the same thing as you. So that just confirms it, in my opinion.
I can say that out of any Disney park I've ever been in my life, I've never felt so immersed in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And that, even if, I know we don't talk about it much, but if anybody's gone to the Harry Potter stuff at Universal,
Right.
They know how immersive that is.
Mm-hmm.
It beats that.
Well, I know that you and I and Danny had a little chat on the side around lunchtime today in regards to, comparing, Diagon Alley and everything else with Galaxy's Edge along the lines of details. And, you made a very good point. It was like, this stepped up that bar, because a lot of people thought that, everything regarding Harry Potter was very, very well done, very immersive and everything. And this just, at least in your opinion, and you have experienced both of them, you thought both were, let me try this again. You've seen both, and you really think that Galaxy's Edge took the cake.
Yes, there's to me, I don't think any other theme park in the world, or not even non-theme park, could ever compare to the immersive feeling you feel in Batuu.
And I'm going to probably take that as being that you're not, I don't want to say you're not a huge Star Wars fan. I don't want to use that terminology. You're a casual observer of Star Wars, it sounds like. And you're probably, I'm going to go ahead and say it, you're probably the kind of Star Wars fan that, being that, given your age, you've only really known the latter, most current movies for the most part. And, makes you probably a really good candidate for the casual observer status. I mean, I've seen all the movies myself. I don't consider myself a diehard Star Wars fan, but I do love the storyline. I do love the brand. But to hear someone such as yourself say, yeah, this is really super awesome. The details and everything else, I think you're going to probably be a good representation for it. But when we heard from Mike last week from Wookiee Radio, even he said the details were just absolutely amazing. Now here's the interesting. Rudy's online with us. Hey Rudy, how you doing? He basically says the problem with the comparison, and this is regarding Harry Potter. He goes, is the Harry Potter area exist in the movies? And he goes, Star Wars would have benefited from that, which in context, I understand. I do believe I understand where he's coming from. And Rudy, you can go ahead and keep me honest if this is not the case, but being that this is not necessarily, this tells a new story. This isn't necessarily a story that's been told in great detail in a lot of the Star Wars canon. Yes, Batuu is mentioned, the Black Spire Outpost is mentioned, etc. But it's never been like the focus of any of the movies, which I believe is what Randy's name is, what Rudy was getting at. And, but it sounds like from what you're saying, this could really open up the next saga, so to speak, especially since the last, the Rise of Skywalker is coming out at the end of the year. And we all know that's the end of that particular saga. This could very well be the precursor to the next one. I don't know, just speculation from this guy.
I completely agree on that. I mean, they've set themselves as a stage that they could definitely put two and two together and make, have based off the theme park off the movies, or the movies off the theme park, I should say.
No, I totally agree. If this kind of thing, Rudy does also make complete the comments here. He goes, I hate Harry Potter, but was amazed on how it looked, just like the scenes from the movies. So, and the funny part is, I will admit, I have the Harry Potter collection of movies. I really do need to see them. I can't get past the first one, and then only because it's so darn long. Well, it is. Tell me I'm wrong.
Yes,
I mean,
it is.
Seriously, 3 hours for a movie. There's very few movies I'll actually sit and watch for 3 hours. The mega happy director cut of Avatar is one of them. Avengers Endgame is the second one, and everything else to me requires at least a 20-minute intermission in the middle. So yeah, I just think that that's kind of interesting. All right, so you're in. You see the detail. You're awed. You're definitely, you're having something of an emotional response. What is the first thing you do? Where are you headed the first thing?
Right to Smuggler's Run.
I kind of figured that was. I didn't get a chance to see the video for the first one, but I saw some of the bits and pieces of it. So you went right to Smuggler's Run. How long? First off, go ahead. Sorry.
I think it's basically because it was the only thing open as well, and the line just kind of kept going towards it. That's why everybody just kind of funneled right into it.
Right. So no one pretty much did anything else. Just boom, right to Smuggler's Run.
Yep, and it was, I would say, maybe 20 minutes max to get in.
Really? Like to actually get into the actual ride vehicle itself, including the pre-show, or what?
Well, okay, so it's a little bit. It's not the normal attraction loading process that Disney fans are used to.
Sure.
If people have been to Universal since they added the Jimmy Kimmel ride, no, not Jimmy Kimmel, that's ABC, Jimmy Fallon ride. They have like it's not really a virtual line, but it is. You get up there and you're given a card with, they have like the multicolored icon for NBC, so they use all those colors, and a group of 25 or 30 people are given green, another group is given blue, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's the same process. You get in there and you need 6 people, so they give you 2 pilots, 2 gunners, and 2 engineers, but they're all given a color card. And then you enter this lobby, and that's where that sit-down table is. And I know that's not the right term for it.
No,
a Star Wars fan would know what it is.
Yeah, it's I call it the chessboard. And
okay.
And the thing is, that's the bit. Yeah, gosh, I'm having a hard time talking tonight. That's like the biggest photo op inside the queue of Smuggler's Run.
Correct, and it's very, very small. I will say that. But you get in that room with that thing, and you're in there with probably maybe 20 or 30 people, and maybe a little bit less than that. And they say, now loading brown. So all the brown cards go over to one side, and, on the other side, they're loading white. So they get everybody in position, and then you go into another door, another chamber, really. And that's when they give you an instructional video that I didn't pay attention to at all, so I really don't know what it said. Then that door opens and it brings you right into your pod.
Right.
And this whole time between handing your card to the cast member and going in there, if you know Star Wars, it's the Millennium Falcon. I mean, it's literally the halls of the Millennium Falcon. And then you get in, and the seating arrangement it's something that you're not used to. To me, I can see it being easily damaged over time. It just feels like the seats aren't secure, but it might be because of how you move. It's one of the most aggressive rides I've ever ridden.
Mm-hmm.
So that might have something to do with it. But anybody that's afraid of being like claustrophobic inside, I know my father-in-law and my wife, for that matter, also, they have, they get issues in like mission space and whatnot, like a lot of people do.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I was worried that they weren't going to be able to do it because of that. I don't think they're going to have an issue with that because it's very open inside. I would say it's a good 6 feet by 8 feet, and it narrows obviously towards the front. But you're wide open in there. Yes, it's a closed pod that you're in, but it is very wide open. I could see where some people could get motion sickness if they're not really paying attention to doing the full roll.
Sure.
Like Rudy said, pushing the buttons and everything kind of keep your eyes off of the screen once in a while, so it keeps your eyes moving, keeps you from getting motion sickness.
Sure, because I could almost picture, if you're not looking at what you should be doing, there's a good chance that you could get disoriented relatively easily.
Correct. And I mean, I only did the engineer role. I wanted to wait till the rest of my family goes with me on Saturday to really do anything else. I didn't really want to spoil anything else besides that, so I just did the engineer role. The pilot role looks like it's very, very active. You do wreck a lot if you have a bad pilot. You bounce off of everything, and like I said, you do feel it. The gunner position, I'm not really too sure exactly what that is. I know the one I was in, the engineer position, there was an orange button I had to keep hitting, which was a laser or something that I had to keep firing to move this one object out of the way. And that was, I mean, there was a lot of pushes on that button. So they told me the gunner is even more aggressive.
Okay. And, one of the things that Brian actually said, going to your disability comment, not disability, claustrophobic comment, he basically says the disability card is bigger. Tell them you're claustrophobic and wait for it, which might be might not be a bad idea if you really are claustrophobic. I could still only imagine that if you're really super claustrophobic, it might still cause an issue. Randy actually asked a question somewhat in jest, and I know this is similar to Mission Space, but did they also have space sickness bags, so to speak?
You know what? I didn't notice. They could have easily put them in there though, because you're literally right behind the seat in front of you. Right. But I didn't notice.
Okay. And it is a group of 6 per ride vehicle, correct?
Correct. Which is nice because it does have a single rider line, and it is wicked fast.
Really?
Yes, they do make a big difference. I mean, we got to the single rider line, I would say no more than 20 minutes again. I mean, I was talking to Rudy and gang a lot, so that obviously makes time go by faster.
Sure.
But if Rudy's still in here, he can either confirm or deny that it was 20 minutes, but I think it was right around 20 minutes.
Well, Rudy does appear to still be watching. I'm sure he'll be able to chime in here in just a second. So you're actually able to write it twice. Both you did the engineer role.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, and that's kind of nice to hear. It's kind of nice to hear that there is that single rider line, which I'm a fan of myself. I know I'll probably end up having to do it probably when I go in September, which I think is actually pretty cool. By the way, some other interesting comments or questions as well. First off, Rudy does say that he does believe that 20 minutes sounds about right. Brian makes a statement that there are 15 ride vehicles, which should make for a pretty good turnover. Also, Randy does joke around and says, and I gotta use a kind of a funny voice, in space, no one hears you vomit. Which that one would have been perfect for Mission Space, to be honest with you. But that's really cool, Randy. I could dig that. And Scott was asking, just for a little clarification, he was saying, hey, how many loading docks do they have per group? If you were able to kind of play back your mind memory there.
Loading docks, is he meaning like where we all kind of gathered in that room?
I think so.
I don't know. I thought there was only one because we were all kind of gathered there, but there definitely could be multiples. If there's 15 cars, there definitely could be multiple of them.
Well, getting a little bit of different comments because also Rudy also said that a cast member told him there were 30 ride vehicles. Okay, well, I guess we're gonna have to find out sooner or later. But there's a good number of ride vehicles for a good amount of turnover, guest turnover for that. Rudy also tends to believe that 90% of the time you'll end up being an engineer in the single rider line, which, okay, fine. I usually stuck with engineer over at Mission Space too. So, and by the way, Jimmy Horn invites you to a hurricane party next week at Disney. We'll get to that at the end of the conversation. So it should be actually really pretty cool. So we'll have to see how it goes. But Brian does make a statement. He goes, 3 load zones. It's two turntables to 7 cars plus 1 static disability. So I could see that. So we'll see how it goes. Darren asks, so it's like Star Tours, but a lot better. I don't know if you could even come close to saying that it's like Star Tours just because of the interactivity, as well as this is one of the first attractions where failure is an option. And that is something that I don't know people realize. Because, like with Mission Space and different things like that and Star Tours, it's always kind of a happy ending-ish. This is one of those things where your outcome of how your team does, how your group does, impacts the attraction dramatically. And it changes how you exit too, if I'm not mistaken.
I can't say anything about that because I did hear, like you said, there, failure is an option in this. And we were talking about that, and it seems like when you do wreck a lot and there is damage done to a vehicle, you're ranked on a certain amount of points that you get. They do honestly, 2 times I did it, they were different numbers. The second time,
Oop. Chris, we might be losing you. Chris. Oi. Chris, if you can hear me, you might have to call back. Oi. Not cool. Yep, he's going to have to. Yep, there it goes. He'll come back in just a second. I know he will. I hope you guys are enjoying this conversation. It's a little bit of a brief interruption for that. We're sorry about that. But let's see. And there he is. Oh, like, how do I pick it up now? Darn. That's a nice little tone, though. Oh, there it is. Well, we got you back. Yay.
And that commercial break was brought to you by Sprint. Always dropping calls.
Okay. Well, we know now we know one place we're never going to get a sponsorship from, but that's okay. Yeah. Oh, by the way, Randy thought you got grabbed by aliens. So either that, I was going to use. I thought I was going to say, well, he went back. The stormtroopers actually found you, but it was one of those. It was one of those things. Albert basically also mentioned from his experience, he says it seemed like the execute was different depending how quote unquote good or bad that you did. So that is actually really kind of interesting if you meant what you do. You said that there was a lot of shooting, a lot of crashing. So what were you about to say after that?
So if you fail epically, there is no like game over crash.
Game over, man.
Do like autopilot if you're that bad. So there's really, while failure is an option, it's not game over failure.
Okay. I see what you mean.
But you definitely do see damage on the side of the ship when you get back on the screen. If people are trying to figure out what this ride is like, I know a lot of people are doing comparisons and everything, and it is a lot like Mission Space with the interactive buttons and everything. It's like Star Tours with the movements, but the screen is not like anything anybody's ever seen. It's kind of, I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it, because Mission Space is not that clear. It's not like HD graphics. Star Tours kind of is, but it's not. This is like you're looking out a window into like a really, really, really high definition TV.
So it's more or less you get something of the effect of depth, but without necessarily having to use 3D glasses.
That's definitely a good way to describe it.
Yeah. Okay, I can see that. It's kind of funny. We were talking about the game over, and I'm assuming someone's going to at least. I may have to take up this challenge. Brian mentioned there is a game over crash. Someone in the media got it to happen, but it's hard but possible. So it should be kind of interesting. And now you know what people are going to be doing. They're going to totally They're going to totally nosedive the Falcon and ruin it for everybody else by trying.
Maybe I'll give it a shot.
No. Me, you, Danny, and let's get anybody else from the show that's there while we're out there for the Food and Wine Festival. Let's just totally trash the bucket of bolts. You know what I'm saying? Oh man. So, but we do it as long as there's no other guests, because we don't want to ruin anybody else's experience. But we would just have to sacrifice it just one time, and someone's got to be wearing a GoPro. So it's just one of those things.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah. So, I mean, it's really kind of interesting. I've seen the depth of the windows, or the depth of the screens, windows, however you want to call it. And, I realize there's probably some technicality to it, but that actually seems to be pretty in depth. Okay. Let's get out of the Falcon for a minute, because it's not just the one attraction. I know that you were there for quite some time, and you got to try, was it the blue or green milk?
Blue milk.
So what you think?
And it's okay. I'm a very picky eater. Doesn't look like I am, but I am. So I was a little bit worried to try it. And one of Rudy's group was at the ordering station, and he asked if I wanted one. Like, sure. So he brought it over to us. And I'm finding out now that you get this was more like a smoothie, but it was like an icy, and this like a slushy or icy, whatever people call it.
Sure.
It was definitely like an iced drink. But apparently the one in the cantina is actually more like a milk itself. So in my opinion, this is the way you got to go. You got to get the frozen one.
Okay.
It was very good. I don't really know what to compare it to, but it was very good.
I know that it seems like every person that has tried either the green/yellow milk and the blue milk, either in frozen and slushy form, that did not work out. In frozen form or in non-frozen form, every person I've talked to has given it a different description. And we know one thing's for sure, just as for everybody's benefit. It's non-dairy. Okay, so it's not a milk product. Neither one of them are, which is really good. It's plant-based. And the reason why I said it, and actually I'll give credit where credit is due. Lou Mangello made the great analogy with this on a live stream he did yesterday. He goes, yeah, and I'm going to paraphrase, I'm not going to quote directly, but he's like, yeah, because it would probably be a bad idea to have a, milk or dairy product in the heat of a Florida summer, which, let's face it, he's right. So yeah, that would have just made my stomach curl without drinking it. So it's one of those things. And it's so Rudy's also saying the blue was way better. Randy's also saying milk of magnesia. No, not quite. But it's kind of interesting. Did you happen to try the non-slush version?
No. Okay. No, I'll be trying that on Saturday. Okay. We got a reservation at the cantina on Saturday at, I want to say 8:00.
Okay.
So I probably won't be doing much videoing in there this weekend. But I'll definitely do a review of which one I think tastes better. Okay. But I personally think I'm going to like the version I had today better.
Okay. Sounds good. I think, to tell you the truth, on a hot summer day, I would say, the frozen slush version is probably the way to go. That's just my 2 cents. If you're going to drink something like that, you might as well make it nice and cold and refreshing and stuff like that. Let me ask you this: was it overly sweet, or was it just like a moderate sweetness? Because, sometimes I think slushies can get, uber sweet, if you catch my drift, almost like if you go into 7-Eleven and get a slushie type of thing.
Yes, it was not anything like that. It was sweet. I'm trying to remember, because it was over 12 hours ago now.
And you've had no sleep.
But yeah, exactly. It was definitely not like no flavor or not sweet at all. It definitely had some flavor to it, and it was a little bit sweet, but it wasn't like, oh my God, I got to go check my blood sugar now. Sweet.
I can relate to that. I understand. So, Rudy also was saying that the green tastes sweeter than blue, at least. And I'm putting this part in. That's what he said. And I think most other people have said the same thing. So I can't wait to actually try that as well. So let me ask you this: outside of trying some blue milk, did you get to? I know that it was really busy, and I know that at this point, trying to do much of anything else probably would have been difficult. And we're kind of getting towards the last quarter of our hour here today. But when it comes to some of the other food or shopping options, were you able to enjoy that? Because I know that by the time you got out of the Falcon, I know that things were pretty much getting to or at capacity, and they started to use the queuing, the virtual queuing function. And so I know it had to be a little on the crowded side, but you said when I talked to you earlier that it was crowded, but it wasn't like waiting, like when you were waiting in line crowded, so to speak.
Yeah, it's so because of the size of that too. It was obviously busy as heck today. There was lines everywhere. But you didn't feel like Toy Story Land just felt crammed when it was opening day.
Yeah.
I just did not get that feeling today. It's very well spread out. There was lines for a lot of the stores. We went to the loading dock, I think it's called, for breakfast, and I had some breakfast item. There was like pork sausage and stuff like that. It looked good, but again, I'm a picky eater, so I just ate the sausage. I wasn't really that hungry, but it was good. The lines for everything else seemed like it was pretty long. The lines for the magic shots were long, but the lines for like the refreshment carts were those grenade Coke bottles and all, the water bottles and all that stuff.
Yeah,
that was maybe 5 minutes long, so that wasn't that crazy.
Okay, so it wasn't too bad.
Nah, I would say overall it was probably about a 7 out of 10, whereas every other opening day was a 10 out of 10.
I mean, I say that, and I'm putting it in perspective at the same time, because I would expect it to be worse. Now, the fact of the matter is that the next few days are really going to be kind of interesting, just because of the hurricane and everything else coming that'll be knocking on your door. We'll get that we'll touch base on that in the last minute, but it just kind of seems like there are some things that people are going to have to take their time. People are going to have to use the different queuing that's available, not just for shopping and everything else. Because I know one of the things I want to do is I do want to make a lightsaber, and at the same time, I'm not going to judge my success or how well I liked it, but whether or not I can actually make a lightsaber. Because I really want to make a lightsaber with my son, to be honest with you. I mean, that would just be really awesome. And he and I both want to make a lightsaber. Being that, he wants to actually start doing some more Star Wars collecting. And of course, I've got my own nice little collection of Disney, Marvel, and Star Wars stuff to begin with. So we'll have to figure it out. We'll have to figure it out, especially with the reservations, because you actually got us some reservations for when Danny and I come down there, and we're going to the cantina.
Yep.
Man, that's going to be awesome. I was telling Danny about that. I said, yeah, we got reservations. He goes, we got reservations? I go, yeah, Chris made us reservations. He goes, Chris made us reservations? I'm like, yes. I'm like, cool. So, I mean, he's like, because, and Danny's not here because he's not a big Star Wars fan. He admits it openly. He's not a big Star Wars fan, but he's looking forward to seeing what it looks like from what I gather. And so I'm looking forward to giving it, giving it all a really big chance. So let me ask this. I want to get to the top. I want to talk a little bit about this storm, because there are some things that I think people need to hear about. I'm actually going to probably release this episode early, just as a partial PSA, public service announcement. But if you can wrap this up with some of your last final thoughts as you ended your day on Batuu, what would you probably say some of your best tips, best experiences are? And obviously you're going to hit it again and again.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be a go-to spot. We were talking today, and one of the things we said is we could definitely see people coming here and just hanging out the whole day. It's that cool a place. There's so much stuff to do. The one really cool but could be negative thing is everybody is such in character, and they do not break it. They are the citizens of Batu.
Right.
And you really have to really kind of plead to them to, get some information that's not Batu related,
Sure.
like, where the nearest bathroom would be or something like that. They're that in character that it's cool, but it could make it hard for somebody that could get annoyed very easily.
And I can understand. I can understand that. I mean, I understand. Like like a lot of people, in the morning, they say, what is it? It's bright suns, and or is it rising sun? No, it's bright suns, rising moon.
Correct.
For morning and good evening, and of course, till the spires is the way you say goodbye, and so this ought to be an interesting one. Brian says they break character if you ask for first aid. He tested that today. I don't know if I want to know, Brian, but we'll have to talk on the side about that. And Alex also mentioned, every cast member has a backstory. Talk to them. And I think, and I intend on doing that. I plan on having conversations with many different cast, and I'm going to try to be in character as well, in the sense of, I am visiting this planet and I don't know what is going on. Although I will say that I'm always a part of the resistance myself. But the interesting part to it is I intend on playing along with it, because I know that's part of it. Now, granted, I don't know if every guest is going to do that or will be able to do that well, but I think that is such an awesome case that, these people, these cast members there, they are just immersed, and they will help that. Just like if, in order to pay for something, it's not money, how much is it? How many credits? It's credits. Yeah. So,
yep.
So
I dealt with that today because I actually paid cash, and they're like, that's 17.53 credits in your changes, whatever credit pack. I'm like, well, that was weird, but it was cool.
This is funny. Albert also mentioned, he goes, he saw two characters break out into an argument over pod racing. Yes, they do that. And Chewie also, when Chewie's by a one of the aircraft, he'll get up there and start trying to fix it as well. That's when that picture I got today of him, that was when he was up by that trying to fix something. Oh man. Rudy says Kylo Ren put a shoulder into me, and I tried to get a cast member said he was afraid to say anything and upset him.
Yep. I was there for that. It was crazy. I'm telling you, they are so in character. You are in a Star Wars movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally get it. And the thing is, Mary actually brings up a very, very good point, and I won't get into the details of this, but Mary actually says, if the land is that immersive, then the hotel will be too. Actually, I'm going to correct what Mary said. If the land is that immersive, I can only imagine how much extra immersive that hotel is going to be. And that is,
for sure.
And Christine actually asks, who plans on staying in the Star Wars hotel? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just say this. This is the only thing I'm going to say on this. I plan on staying at the Star Wars hotel. Can't tell you when, because I haven't sold my kidney yet. Okay. So, but I'm sure I'll figure out a way sometime. I mean, I'm really hoping my son gets like this huge, massive scholarship to college, because if that happens, one, buying more DVC points, two, staying at the Star Wars hotel. And I'm glad that he doesn't. Well, wait, I'm glad he's not awake. He's in bed already. Cause he probably would have been like, what? Yeah. So yeah. And so it's absolutely one of those things. All right, Chris. Well, listen, let's go ahead and let's step away from Batu for a minute. And I know that we try to always provide some of our listeners some insight as to what happens during like these storms, especially hurricanes. And I've been through a hurricane there down in Florida, and it's, if you've never been through it, it can be scary as heck. And I think here's just my 2 cents, and I want to know if you as a Floridian either agree, disagree, or have some additional tips. But my whole take on it is I think oh wait, hold on a second. I gotta say this. Albert, I love Albert. He's awesome. He goes, can we please do a BTEP fundraiser for a group Star Wars hotel trip? That would be awesome. But the thing is that sometimes it's the hurricane is supposed to really get to its worst sometime between Sunday and Monday. And here's my advice to people that might be, say, flying down there or even driving down there around that time. The fact is that everybody here, we're pretty much all adults here, right? So the fact of the matter is you got to make some good decisions. Disney is actually, if I'm not mistaken, I know from the DVC perspective, I've heard, and I can't confirm, but I'm just going to say this. They're putting in place, a cancellation policy. Most airlines have not yet put into place a cancellation policy, but I'm sure that'll probably be the case as well. And of course, trip insurance, if you have to go on a Disney cruise and it's going to be interrupted by that, those are things to take into consideration. Last time a big hurricane came through, I heard stories from a friend of mine whose daughters went down there thinking everything was going to be just hunky-dory and fine. And from a Disney hotel perspective, they take care of you. They make sure you're safe. They make sure you're fed. It may not necessarily be gourmet, but they take care of, the basic needs for everybody. And those cast members are sacrificing their time with their families in order to be there. My 2 cents on it is, regardless if this is going to be a storm that skips off of Central Florida or what have you, there still will be many disruptions, both from flight travel and airline flight travel, and as well as road travel, and especially if you're driving and you have to get fuel, because sometimes different places won't be able to get fuel. That was a big problem last year. And so you're going to have to make some decisions. And personally, I would probably vote to stay home. And if you're already there in the middle of it, good luck. You may have a problem getting home. And that may be a challenge for people. Actually, Marissa makes a comment. He goes, I ended up rescheduling my trip, supposed to be this weekend, for peace of mind and to make sure we don't feel like we're throwing away money paying to be there and not able to be at the parks. Very good point, Marissa. I mean, the fact of the matter is that we will be able to, reschedule, and we could still do that. Karen also makes a really good comment. Be considerate. If you're not staying at Disney, do not bother to come visit. Coastal people come in and need the local places to stay. And that's kind of
100% agree with that.
I totally agree with that too. Brian makes a comment. He goes, going back to my fuel comment, he goes, gas is starting to get rough. Evacuations have started. If driving, park with a full tank and use the bus. Makes a big point. Mary's basically saying, Disney is very safe if you're there. I totally agree. And Alex is basically saying, it's coming in deep. And yeah, we all hope, just like Mary says here, we all hope the hurricane turns. And I agree. I hope it bounces off the coastline and just goes back out to sea. That would be the best thing. It'd be best if it didn't bounce off the coast and just turned off to sea. But that's a whole different wish. Alex, that's a great bumper sticker phrase here. Don't be scared, be prepared. I think that's really cool. Mary also reminds, be nice to the cast members. Brian puts up great too. Safest place during a hurricane is not in the hurricane. Anna says, hey, come to California, Disneyland instead. That's not a bad idea, to be honest with you. And a lot of airlines will change your flights for only the difference in airfare. And believe it or not, in some cases, it costs only a few bucks more to go out to the West Coast. So think about that. I like that, Anna. That's awesome. And by the way, Anna, just to let you know, I may be coming out to the West Coast for Disneyland during some trip next year. So would love to meet up with our Disneyland friends as well. So yeah, there's a lot of people that are commenting now. What are some of your thoughts? Oh wait, hold on a second. Randy also mentions this, and I want to throw this out there. He goes, as a former EMT, I'll tell you, don't call 911 during the hurricane. We won't respond during the storm. We're not going to risk.
That's 100% correct.
Yeah, we're not going to risk our safety to help you during the hurricane. We will wait for the eye to move and the storm to calm down. And I understand it, and Randy, thank you for your time in serving as an EMT, as well as to anybody else who is a first responder, because quite honestly, this is a very big challenge for every last one of them. Is one of those cases. Hold on a second. Pardon me, everybody. Sorry about that. And so, it's just one of those cases. What are some other tips that you would have to say for a traveler that may have to realize that their trip is going to be inconvenienced by a storm like this?
So what I like to start off by saying with that is, this is coming from a local standpoint and perspective. The biggest thing that I would say is, if you're planning on coming down during a hurricane, obviously you're not planning that 6 months ahead, but if it turns out that you're going to be here during a hurricane, something I know every single local in the area would prefer is, if you had a rental car reservation, go ahead and cancel that if you can, because at this point we need to conserve all the fuel that we can possibly have for our own vehicles to get places that we need to get in the event of emergency. It's not fun having a hurricane when you're at Disney on vacation, but just imagine when you're a local here and you're trying to live your life and you're trying to get everything prepared and try to get everything straightened out after a storm hits.
Yeah.
Fuel is the number one thing. And if we can conserve all the rental cars getting filled up, and maybe have the inconvenience of taking a resort bus or something instead, that's greatly appreciated in advance. The lines for gas, it's not fake what they show. When I got hit by Irma down in Fort Myers, I waited 3 hours for gas one morning and I didn't get it. So that's one of the biggest things. If you are here, you're gonna, depending on when the storm hits, you're gonna lose a day. A lot of these storms are fast moving. You're gonna have that one that stalls over land for a while, and you'll get rain and maybe 30 to 40 mile an hour winds, but it's not craziness. It's not worth canceling your trip over. If you can reschedule it and not really affect anything, then I would probably go ahead and do that. But it's not worth canceling or losing money on. If you are in a Disney hotel, you are in the safest place in Florida, besides a emergency center or something.
And sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, finish. I'm sorry.
Fort Myers, I wasn't prepared last year or 2 years ago when we got hit by Irma, because my family was in from Pennsylvania. We were actually in Disney, and we went back and didn't have any power for 5 days. It was 120 degrees in my house. We had no food because all the food was gone. All the stores were closed. Up here, I brought in all my lawn stuff and put it in the shed so it didn't fly around. But other than that, I'm not worried about buying water, buying all this stuff. I mean, you see people buying 5 cases of water for 2 days that they're going to be stuck inside. You don't drink 5 bottles of water when there's not a hurricane. So when I live this close to Disney, I'm not worried for supplies. If I'm hungry or I need, power or I need water, I'm going to go to a Disney resort and eat. But anywhere else in Florida, if you're not near Disney, I think you have to be smart and be prepared.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those cases. I will tell you this. Some people might say this was not the most brightest thing to do. And I would probably say afterthought, yes, I agree. But back when Hurricane Jeanne, mind you, this is 12 years ago or more now, came through, I actually changed my flight to get down there a day early before the hurricane. However, I didn't use a rental car. I didn't stay on Disney property. I stayed with a friend of mine who'd never been through a hurricane before. And So the thing is that I have been through hurricanes and tropical storms before. And so my family stayed with his family, and we, it was really not too bad. We didn't lose power. We didn't lose water or anything like that. There was a little bit of damage to his house, but minuscule. And, it was an interesting experience. And we're both kind of glad that we were there for each other as friends. And then of course, after the curfew was lifted, we went to Disney. We did lose a day. And, Disney, we contacted Disney and let them know what we were doing. And they like, okay, fine, we will be able to accommodate you. Don't sweat it. We got you covered. But I think if I had to do it all over again, I probably wouldn't. Here's the thing. I'm glad we did do that because, the airport was closed for like 3 days. It was that hard of a storm. And, by the time we were getting ready to leave, everything was back up to normal. Thank goodness. So, it was one of those cases. Well, I'll tell you what, Chris, we're going to go ahead and get going here. But I just want to say, I hope that this storm, turns out to be next to nothing and that everybody remains safe. But by all means, you stay safe. And by all means, thank you so much for sharing your time on Batu with us today. And we can't wait to see more pictures over at the Behind the Ears Podcast Facebook page, as well as our Instagram page. Everything that you have done. So by all means, thanks again for that, my friend.
Well, thank you guys for following along, and I hope you guys all enjoyed it.
Sounds good. Why don't you go ahead and hold on, and we'll be right with you.
All righty.
All right, everybody. That was Chris. Chris is our local communications director for the show. Anything that goes on site, we try to get Chris involved with that. He does an absolutely fabulous job at, basically telling us about what's going on. He's our eyes and ears and our hands while we are not there. By all means, if you run into Chris while he's there, and you can always find him because he's always wearing some sort of Behind the Ears Podcast swag, chances are he may have a button or two that he can give you. And if he doesn't, he's going to take your email address and we're going to make sure you get something. Because you know the rule. You find one of us in the parks, you get swag. We may not have it on us. We'll get it to you. All right, everybody. Hold on and listen to this little bit of message as we end tonight. You heard the show, and we hope you want more. Well, feel free to join us over at our social media platforms. Instagram and our Facebook page can be found at Behind the Ears Podcast. Our webpage is behindtheearspodcast.net, and our email is behindtheearspodcast@gmail.com. And our Twitter handle is @BehindTheEarsPC. And come and join the conversation about all things Disney over at the WDW community page. Don't forget to rate and review the show over at iTunes or Apple Podcasts, as it really helps us get the word out about the show. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the show on iTunes or Apple Podcasts or the Podbean app. Also, you can listen to us on Stitcher Radio, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, and via Alexa and Google Home. All right. Well, listen, I'm going to answer one last comment here that has showed up from Emis, and I'm hoping I'm pronouncing your name right, my friend. He basically says this: I have a reservation for a hotel off property and asked if it could cancel without penalties. And they said, no, I don't know what to do. Either lose money unnecessarily. Tell you what, my friend, you obviously probably have some sort of a credit card down on as a reservation holding. Tell you what, if they don't cancel it, and if there's a curfew in the area, you could always claim that. You could always talk to your credit card company. You might be able to go ahead and have the charge reversed because of the situation. I don't think all is lost, my friend. If nothing else, talk to corporate headquarters of that particular hotel brand. See if there's anything they can do. If not, as I said, contact your credit card company. I hope that helps you out. That will be my last tip of the evening. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for joining us tonight on this episode of Behind the Ears Podcast. Really enjoyed the conversation with Chris. Thank you for all your comments joining us. And by all means, we really appreciate you guys supporting the show. Love you guys, and thank you all so much for that. But until we meet again, we hope that you have an absolutely magical day till the spires, my friends. Take care.